The foldable iPhone is closer than ever, but Samsung is ready to put in a fight with a very similar format. In the last couple of months, we've seen a lot of leaks and rumors about the foldable iPhone. Some call it the iPhone Fold, some call it the iPhone Ultra. The name is not really important. But every rumor points to this design. Some say it's a passport format, that compared to other foldables, when it's closed, it has a more squared off screen, which is shorter, but also wider. Definitely not a common format for foldables these days. And it seems like Samsung wants to do something very similar to what they did with the iPhone Air. They want to get ahead of Apple and their iPhone Ultra with something that many are calling the Galaxy Z Fold Wide. But what makes this design so special for Apple to use it as their first foldable design? And why would Samsung change to something like that when they already have the Z Fold 7? There are some important details that could be the key into this wide foldable fight. We need to start with a big question. The main focus of foldables is the tablet experience, the phone experience, or can it be both at the same time? If you focus on the experience with the device open, usually you're sacrificing some of the experience when it's closed. And there are some others that want a better phone experience when it's closed, but the tablet experience simply it's not that good. Here's where the design from the iPhone Ultra and the Z Fold Wide come into play, because they are both very similar, with a 5.8-inch screen on the outside and an 8-inch screen on the inside. And just to be clear, these are obviously 3D prints based on the rumors of both devices. There could be some changes, but they may give us a very clear idea of what's coming up. Both of them have this passport format that can change a lot how we use a foldable. Part of it of the physical experience with the hardware, but also how it blends up with the software that gives you, in theory, a better foldable. We had a lot of foldable designs over the years, and now how are the designs of the iPhone Ultra or the Z Fold Wide going to change our lives? Let's just compare it to the closest that we have right now, which is the Z Fold 7. If the rumors and these prints are right, the internal screen of the Fold 7, the Wide, and the Ultra are the same 8 inches. But closed, the new ones have a 5.8-inch screen, which is less than the Z Fold 7. The iPhone Ultra and the Galaxy Wide will have less inches than the old Fold 7. But don't let those inches fool you, because what we need is area. We're used to measuring TVs by inches because all the TVs have the same aspect ratio of 16:9. But with phones, this is a little bit different because we have all sorts of shapes, sizes, and aspect ratios. And we can even have two different screens that are both the same inches, and one has more area than the other. With the same diagonal inches, how can we get the most screen area? With a 1x1 square, very close to the inside of the Z Fold 7. The problem with the Fold 7 is that this big internal square screen has to fold in half, naturally. And we get half of that aspect ratio, and we end up with this very long screen when folded. That's why the outer screen is 6.4 inches. That sounds like a lot, but in reality it has less area than other phone screens. And for things like video, it doesn't end up using all that space. And the outer screen of the Fold 7 ended up like this because Samsung focused more on the tablet experience, with a lot more space, but sacrifices on the folded shape. But how can we get to the middle point of having the biggest area possible on the inside and on the outside if both screens have the same aspect ratio? So let's do some math. The aspect ratio is just a fraction of height and width. And we need a fraction that when you multiply the width by 2, we have the inverse ratio. And the magic number is the square root of 2, or around 1.41. Here's where the form factor of the Z Fold Wide and the iPhone Ultra start making sense, because they both get very close to that magic number. On the Z Wide, the aspect ratio of the external screen is 1.5 and the inner screen is 1.3. And on the foldable iPhone, the aspect ratio on the outside is 1.44 and the inside one is 1.39. The foldable iPhone Ultra and the Galaxy Z Wide are the best foldables? Math says yes. With this aspect ratio, both try balancing out the most screen area possible on the inside and on the outside. And with more space, we can have a better experience both in tablet and in phone mode. With the size alone, we have a great advantage for content. And the best example for this is with video. Just for context, with a 16:9 video on the old Z Fold 7, only 76% of the outer screen is used, and we have big black sections on the sides. Inside, those black sections get even bigger, and we only use 62% of that screen. Yikes. On the Z Fold Wide and the iPhone Ultra, this new aspect ratio makes a lot of difference for video. Up to 85% of usage with the phone closed on the Z Wide, and on the inside of the iPhone Ultra, we jump from the 62% that we have from the Z Fold 7, we now use 78% of that screen for video. And considering that a lot of time we're watching videos on streams, video walls, social media, both in horizontal or vertical, all this extra space for content is very welcome. But there are some other factors that can affect the experience. The iPhone Ultra sounds like an incredible idea, but our hands really aren't made for it. When closed, the iPhone Ultra and the Z Fold Wide can be a little scary because of this proportion that feels a little bit retro. It's even more squared off than an iPhone 4. Because similar to what Samsung has been teasing for their next Unpacked event, it's like we cut off the top sections of an iPhone Pro Max or the top of the S26 Ultra, and that's how we get this blockier shape. But there has been some discussion about the design, especially with the iPhone. The rumors of the iPhone Ultra say that the design will be like this model. On the right side, we have rounded corners, very similar to the current iPhone. But on the left side of the chassis, we have those sharp corners, even though the screen is gonna be rounded still. And I get it, the rounded screen with the sharp corners only on one side looks very odd. But there aren't many ways around it. This is something that other brands like Oppo and the Google Pixel have done with their foldables because of the same issue. There aren't many ways around it, but what you can do is embrace it. Because what Samsung did is that knowing that the corners of the hinge need to be sharp, they just made it part of the design, and the other corners are sharp as well. This gives us a very symmetric and elegant design that Samsung has been showing off for years with the last generations of the Fold. And they're doing it again with the Z Fold Wide. But this corners on a wider phone may cause an issue. The Z Fold Wide and the iPhone Ultra are wider than the S26 Ultra or the iPhone 17 Pro Max that are already very wide, which could make it very difficult to grip it with one hand. And that's exactly why I use a 17 Pro and not the Max, because it's easier to grab. And the shape of those corners do affect ergonomics. That means how easy it is to grab and use the device with your hands. Samsung went with all the sharp corners, and with the Z Fold 7 format works quite well, because it's a thinner device, and with one hand, your thumb can reach the other side of the screen without too much of an issue, especially when typing. But with the Z Fold Wide, things change. Since the device is much wider, it is difficult to grip the device with one hand. And if you want to use your thumb to type something on the other side of the screen, that sharp corner stops to jab into the palm of your hand. So it doesn't make it very pleasant to use entirely. On the other hand, with the iPhone Ultra, those rounded corners help with ergonomics. It fits better on your hand, and when you stretch your thumb, that rounded corner gives you more room to move comfortably. And that's also the same reason why the Galaxy S26 are going back to having those rounded corners. Just that with the Ultra, it can do it that much because of the S Pen, but that's for another video. Oh, and with the iPhone Ultra, if you're left-handed, good luck managing with those sharp corners. At the end of the day, both of these shapes sacrifice some of the ergonomics for the extra screen width, so I think we'll have to train a little bit more our little fingers if we want that extra screen. Oh, and that reminds me, now we need to open it up. The experience of opening up these foldables is not an easy thing. We have to feel like it's a unified experience, but also needs to turn into an entirely new experience when you open up that bigger screen. Just like an iPhone and an iPad, they have a similar look and feel, but they behave in very different ways. For Apple's first foldable, opening up this device should be an incredible experience. So much that Samsung wants to steal some of that thunder and explore other form factors after years of having the Z Fold. How can these new foldables change our experience? When closed, they both try to beat regular phones. We already talked about the bigger screen with more space for video, calls, games, But this shape changes something that we do all the time: texting with one hand. Even as the screen is wider, the keyboard still has to take the same height. So that part that is cut off with the shorter screen is just the context. For short messages, that should be enough, but if you want to write a paragraph, you'll probably want to open up for a bigger screen. And we still have the same issue of stretching your finger to the other side when you want to type, unless you have a more compact virtual keyboard. But I think that the most important experience would be with this foldables open, because this is where one has more experience than the other. Samsung already has years of experience making foldables, and Google has been supporting and optimizing Android for foldables. That way you can use the same apps when you use your phone closed, and when you open it up, the same apps and games expand or adapt themselves to the bigger screen. And Samsung has been extended that experience even farther, giving us more options to divide your screen with the app bar, and I think they're taking it to the next level with DeX. Because switching from a folded experience to the same experience just on a bigger screen, sometimes it just doesn't feel like an upgrade. But the Z Fold Wide really wants to change your experience with Samsung DeX. DeX is Samsung's system that lets you transform the tablet experience that usually lets you use one or two apps at the same time into a computer experience with multiple apps at the same time, floating windows that you can adjust to many sizes. DeX was only on tablets and when you connected phones to a monitor, but Samsung started testing it directly on the Z Trifold. That way you can have a big change of experience between the fast and compact with the phone closed to a powerful and flexible computer experience to do a lot more with the bigger screen. And where does that leave the iPhone Ultra? When closed, you'll get an iPhone experience. There's no doubt about that. But when you open it up, you'll get an iPhone experience or an iPad experience. Because this isn't the first time Apple has designed an experience for this size. We have the iPad mini, which is almost the same size as the iPhone Ultra when open. With the latest versions of iPadOS, the iPad, including the mini, now have features like Stage Manager, with multiple windows running at the same time. One of the best things that has happened to the iPad in a long time, and Apple has made them a lot more functional. And some would even say it's very similar to DeX. The problem is that compared to Android, iPadOS and iOS are separate experiences. I would love if Apple just said, oh, we're gonna combine iOS and iPadOS, done. And that way you have a unified experience, but also a different experience from the inside and the outside. But that's not gonna happen. But being more realistic, they're probably gonna stick with iOS. And on the bigger screen, they can stretch an iOS app like old days, and maybe they can have two apps side by side. Or something that Apple showed during WWDC is that on the next version of iOS, developers can make their apps extend the same application just using that extra screen space. It does extend a little of the iOS experience, but makes me a little bit worried that it won't provide that unique of an experience that Apple needs for their first foldable. So what's the purpose of the iPhone Ultra and the Z Fold Wide? With this form factor, they try to balance the phone and the tablet experience. On the Wide, Android can join the phone and the tablet experience, but with DeX, Samsung can provide a different experience that uses that bigger screen on a more optimal way. With the iPhone Ultra, iOS has a very solid phone experience, but just stretching iOS on a bigger screen maybe doesn't provide a significant difference and an optimized magical experience for the first foldable iPhone. Obviously, the tech and the hardware behind both of them is impressive. How thin they are, the software that goes into it, there's no doubt about that. But the experience that they both provide will be a big part of the key that makes people decide which is a better foldable. This is all based on the rumors that we have right now. The Z Fold Wide will be announced in a couple of weeks during the next Unpacked, but there's still a long way for Apple to announce anything related to this. Maybe September, maybe even October. And this is probably going to be the first announcement from the new CEO of Apple, John Turner, so there's a little bit of pressure in there. But that's all for this video analyzing the experience of the iPhone Ultra and the Z Fold Wide. But if you want to watch more tech, subscribe to this channel. And we're probably gonna test out the new Samsung devices pretty soon, so subscribe for that. That's all for me. I'm Pato Gonzalez. You can follow me on all socials as PatoG7 or in English as Oxplode, and we'll see you on the next one.